And we are live. So
Yeah.
hello, Claudia.
Good
Hello,
morning,
everyone.
einav.
Good morning, good morning. And if there's anyone here watching us, then good morning to you too. And if you're watching us on the replay, then good day. So, my name is Einav. I'm your host, Untangled Coaching, and with me is Claudia Kratzheller, and I am very, very happy to welcome you here today.
Thank you,
So,
einav. Thank you for the
Claudia,
invitation. Yeah.
absolutely. Let's start by introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're
Mhm.
about, what you believe, everything.
If I would do everything, we wouldn't. We would take a long time. I keep it short. Yeah, my name you said is Claudia Kratzheller. I am an embodiment coach and a yoga teacher. I worked a lot in corporate,
Mm.
giving leadership trainings, and that was very much about habits people have and making them aware of the habits that they have that support them, but also some of them that they're not aware of and that are not supportive, because very
Mm.
often things are subconscious, and
Absolutely.
it has very much to do with body awareness. And there it links in with the yoga that I did. And yoga, many people do it because they want to be more flexible or they want to create body mind connection, which is a fabulous um, connection, and that's actually very much what I work with. And the other part that I've been spending a lot of my life on is on. I was a dancer for 20 years and dancing contemporary styles, dancing tango. And why I mentioned the tango is in terms of embodied communication. What I very much learned from tango is you have to first connect to yourself, to your own being, to your axis, how you connect to the ground. And from there, you can actually connect to your partner. And from there, you can connect to the space. And when the link to communication in that sense is, for instance, when we talk, you ask me a question, I respond, and then it is also like a dance, so like a give and receive. And also here, many times it's subconscious how we respond, and there it links in into sometimes limits that you have inside of your mind. If you think like, oh, I can't say that, or what will the other person think of me? And there, when you listen to the signals of your body, they can give you clues and also connect you to something that some maybe even said beyond the words. And that is often where things happen, because there's a cognitive realm here in the mind where we process information, and there is a subconscious layer, and that has very much to do with feelings, with sometimes also conditioning. And the boundaries, I bring that word in here, like when I feel I have a boundary that I can't say something, I limit myself. And then if you do that a lot of the time, sometimes you might not even feel complete anymore. You don't even feel whole anymore, or don't feel alive anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible state to be in.
And I want
So,
to ask just
mm,
because you've mentioned this when you have a conversation, when you
hmm
talk to someone, and then you feel actually, I don't feel I can say this. So a lot of the time we speak to someone, and instead of concentrating on what we want to say and how we want to um, convey our message, we really move on to the other person's shoes and think, how are they going to perceive us? What are they thinking about us? How are they judging
hmm
us? Basically, we are removing ourselves from here and now in our body,
hmm
and
hmm
we go into the other person, and we fear the judgment.
mm,
So when you say, when someone notices that this is their reality, that this is how they actually do the speaking with two minds in a sense, what can
hmm
you what can you say to someone like that? How to bring themselves back into their presence, and not to be
hmm
so much bothered with other people's opinions, or their assumptions of other people's beliefs and judgment.
hmm hmm Yeah, there are some very practical tools. First is to reconnect not only to your brain, but to your body. And that is, for instance, to feel your feet on the ground. Or if you don't have your feet on the ground, for instance, I don't have my feet on the ground because I sit in a cross-legged position, but to feel the support under your bum, to feel how am I sitting in my chair, so that you get a feedback from the physical reality around you where you are, because that already brings you a bit more into your body. The other point of self-connection is to notice if you're holding your breath or if it's flowing. For instance, if you're very busy in your mind, sometimes it can really like
Right.
this, and then the energy goes up, and you hold your breath because you're busy in your mind, and then you can exhale and notice. You can even put one hand and put it on your belly, because that can enhance to feel the breathing in your body. And also that you simply notice if you have been holding your breath, and then to bring it back into your own body. That is like, yeah, two concrete examples how you can connect to yourself and to your physical reality, your bodily reality. And the other is to make a swap in your mind and turn it around. So rather than what do they think of me, think like, what do I think about them? And do it in a benevolent, kind way. You know, like for instance, wow, oh, I see einav is wearing a yellow sweater. That looks cozy, it looks warm. Or what a nice smile she has. Or, you know, like, she's also wearing glasses. Maybe where did she get her glasses? I also wear glasses. So that you think about something that connects you to the other person rather than perceiving them as a threat or as a judge. So you're really, you're taking charge of your own mind, but in a way that's going outwards and that is connecting rather than judging.
I
And
really
it's,
like that.
mm,
I really,
yeah,
really like that. It's
mm,
a lot of my clients, they tell me that when they need to speak to other people,
mhm,
they they go out into what they're thinking and how they're being judged, and so
mhm,
they find that their message is not as strong. So I really like what you were suggesting about the feeling, putting your feet on the ground and actually noticing your breath and
mm,
connection.
yeah,
Um, and that, as you said earlier, I'm just going to connect that now into the idea of boundaries,
mhm,
right? It's I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let you describe what boundaries are. Why should we have them? How should we set them? Tell us
mhm.
what did you find in your practice?
Yeah, boundaries, it's a huge theme. I mean, and also here it depends very much. Let's start with physical boundaries. You know, here we are now in a digital room, so there are there's the limitation of the screen, so I can't see the space around. It sometimes is limiting how you spread your perception out, you know. And when you are meet live, you have other boundaries around you. There's more space around. You can also pick up other signals from people. And in terms of boundaries, it depends very much how you adapt to the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
The boundaries here, for instance, yeah, I have a chair here, so I can lean on it. And if you can use boundary, okay, now I'll go off on why boundaries are useful. If you take it to a conversation again, very often it happens that people, they send out a lot of words, a lot of words, a lot of words, and maybe sometimes your capacity to listen is saturated, and you cannot listen anymore. And often people don't respect their boundaries in that, to say, I need a break or I need a pause. And because they don't want to be seen as unkind or not nice. And then setting limits is actually very useful. In terms of boundaries in relationships, also intimate relationships, you know, often I work a lot for women. I also work with and for men, but it happens very often, for instance, in sexual relationships, that women allow actions that are actually not within their boundaries. And then to listen very much to what is really okay for me from an embodied consent and not only from a thought up consent. It's a whole process, and to really declare that. Yeah.
And I think, with all different types of boundaries, sometimes people say, actually sometimes people don't recognize that they need, or that they really should, or it's recommended
Mm.
that they create boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
and then they just notice that maybe their energy is completely gone. Like, I speak to this person and they completely sucked my energy, and I don't really know how and why, but this has
Uh-huh.
happened. So, and also, it can be just with friends, it can be also at the workplace. And
Mm-hmm.
people, so what I noticed about people, that a lot of the time they either don't realize that they should set boundaries, and
Mm-hmm.
then if they think about boundaries, they think, okay, actually I don't know how to set them. How do I create these boundaries without being rude, or without being perceived as rude,
Mm-hmm.
and how do I know when to even keep them, and when to say, well, okay, usually I do this thing, but today, it's a one-off, I'll allow it. how
Mm-hmm.
how should people deal with boundaries, and how to create them, how to enforce them?
Mm. Yeah. Super interesting and very, very valuable subject.
Mm.
The boundaries in the workplace, for instance. I mean, first of all, you have to recognize that it's happening.
Happening meaning that there is no boundaries, or
That
that,
that people go over your boundaries.
right?
Yeah, that's of course the very basic step. And then it's about declaring what is okay for you and what is not okay for you. And here you come into that realm that some people fear, if I say it's not okay for me, will they reject me? Will they judge me as unkind? And but that is your own entanglement. I mean,
Mm.
to use your word. And this step that really helps from the inside to disattach from the outcome or the judgment of other people. And it's also drawing a clear line and giving it time to see if it's been taken on by other people, because often people are so much in their own world, or they perceive you in the way that they've always perceived you, so
Mm.
that it is really shocking for both sides if you step out of that dance. And I can give you an example from my own experience.
Yes, please.
And that is about family. And family is, I mean, those are the folks who are closest to us, but also sometimes the ones who can hurt us the most, because they think they know you very much. And they know you maybe from a certain time, but not from the time where you're now. And in the workplace, it's often the same. If you had a history of working in a company for 3-4 years and you've been in a certain position, and then people assume you are like that. So to come back to my story, it I have a sister who is very strong in opinions. She's older than me, so constellation also plays a role.
Mm.
And we couldn't talk with each other anymore. I mean, the conversation always ended in rage. I was throwing stuff around because I was so angry because she wouldn't respect my boundaries, even though I said very clearly what's okay and what's not okay for me.
Mm.
So I was like, man, what do I do? And then I first tried, because I want to stay in connection. I gave her very clear uh, ground rules, roadmaps, like how I wish to communicate. I said, okay, please let me finish the sentence. Please speak from your own reality instead of you must, you should. It's irresponsible that you, because then you put fingers out. And it's
Mm.
very different if you communicate from, I feel, or this hurts me if you do it, or I get annoyed if you don't have the work done in time, or I get worried uh, if you don't do this or that. So then you speak how it is for you, and you don't go external to put a blame on the other. And I
Mm.
felt that was not happening, even though I tried. I said, like, okay, I have to do something different. And then I drew a very clear line. I said, no, I'm not coming. I don't come on Christmas. I would love to see you because I love you, but it's not working like this. And I also gave very clear reasons why it's not working for me.
Mm.
And it felt scary, and it felt also, yeah, it felt scary because I would love to see them, but for me, it was most important that my inner peace and my boundaries were respected. And then I let her sit with it, and I didn't do anything else. I really gave it time. but I stayed available. So that's very important as well, to declare the boundaries and then not expect that they're immediately being followed up, but stay in your own space and be with it.
Yeah.
So that you don't, because otherwise you expect that it changes immediately, and that will most likely not happen. And then it took a while, and then she came back and she apologized. And she also said, oh, I see that I need to accept that you stand differently in that. And yeah, and apologized. And I was really relieved.
Mm.
It was quite a step. And the other thing is to also give it's a process. It will not be done in one time. So to acknowledge really small steps and then keep on following that path. That is also important.
But it
So,
sounds like it's like saying, okay, actually, if my boundaries are not respected, then I'm willing to let go. And when you're willing to let go and you say, well, it's actually, I've had enough in trying, basically. And now I'm saying,
mhm,
this is my truth. This is where I stand. And
mhm,
now I give you the choice. What do you want to do? Do you want to come back
exactly.
and see it my way, or do you want to stay in your way? And in which case, I'm also not budging, because this is what I need to have happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So letting go in a way of letting go of the outcome,
Yeah.
not letting go of your standards and what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's very important distinction.
Yeah.
And the other thing also that, yeah, to stay in connection, but not in a way of wanting to change the other person. You just state what you need. You let it be, and you stay in your own space, but you are available.
And this available, that's what I wanted to ask as well.
Yeah.
How are you available? How does the other person know that you're available?
Well, to come back to the example of my sister, I said, I'm not going to pick up the phone, but I'm going to listen to voice messages. So
Mm.
she knows she can talk to me, but in that state where it was there, I wouldn't go in a direct conversation with her, but I said, I'm going to listen to it in my time, and I'm going to come back to you. Maybe not immediately,
Mm.
but I will in that time. So you give a very direct time frame so that the other person is not like, oh, when is it gonna happen? And timing here is very important, because people have very different timings. Some are really fast and expect an answer immediately,
Mm.
and other people need their time to sit with it and then to come back maybe in a different time. But in terms of safety for both parties, or for both people involved, it's very important to communicate, okay, I'm going to come back to you maybe in the next 2 hours, or maybe until next week, so that your nervous system has a safety net. I'm not going to be abandoned. You come back to me, and I don't push you totally. I don't push you out. I am available.
I like that, because I think a lot of the time people allow their emotions to actually get into the game, and then
Yeah,
it's really about, the stories that people are telling themselves, like, you know I'm not loved, I'm not seen, I'm not good enough.
exactly.
Basically going
Yeah.
back into the old stories and patterns, which are probably
Mhm.
not very helpful.
That's very true. Yeah, and that's and emotions, and that's also an important part in the story with my sister. There were opinions and
Mm.
arguments, and that is external. You can and made up from your mind. It can be true. It can also not be true. But what it is truly is about is the emotion,
Mm.
how it makes you feel. And I noticed there it was rage, anger, frustration. But underneath was love. She cares for me, and I care for her. And to connect on an emotional level, but then with very clear lines, that is a key. And coming back to your body, oops, Ola, what was that? How's the sound? Coming back to your body, what your body gives you signals. When we were in that state of non-connection, I saw that she was calling and my heart was beating faster and I got a knot in my stomach.
Mm.
And if you relate that to a work situation, if you speak to a superior, for instance, and you dread speaking to that person, you also can get signals like that you start to breathe shallow, that your hands get sweaty, that your heartbeat starts to beat, because your body is giving you the signal, danger, and then it's hard to think and to feel clearly.
Yeah.
And so, and to listen to the signals of the body, okay, to come back to the self-connection that we had, to loop it back, then to notice, okay, I can start to feel the ground, I can start to feel the breath. Maybe if you are enraged, you need to throw something, or if you are in the workplace, to get out and start walking down the corridor, like, with really fierceness and from your center. And here, I mean, the body and the pelvis comes in. I do a lot of pelvic work for men and for women. If you operate from your center place, your pelvis, it's a place of strength and also vulnerability. Because, I mean, emotionally, your organs are situated there, your sexual organs are situated there, but pure anatomy is your connection to the ground. And and to come back to the example of when you need to get out your emotions, you can do that by calming your body by fast movement. If you are in a meeting and you can't escape in that moment, you can really, notice your physical reality here and now.
I want to talk a little bit more about this, the grounding and the pelvic, and how you said that it influences speech. I know that I was listening to one of your YouTube things one day, where you were talking about, yes, this grounding and how to uh, get connected with your core, basically. And then later that day, I had a webinar that I was running to about 30 team leaders, people that I normally would feel a little bit like, oh,
Uh-huh.
coming from my own story. And then I reminded myself of that. So I was able to really get grounded with myself and keep my attention on what I was saying rather than worry about these people
Yeah.
outside of me.
Wonderful.
But I want you to share with whoever might be listening a little bit, what can they do to stay in the present, to stay grounded? As you said, maybe it is with the connection of the pelvic and actually something that they can do that can snatch them back into here and now, into the me, into my powers, into my wisdom.
Yeah. There are many entrances in that. I first want to spend a little bit of time to speak about muscle and fascial connection. Your pelvis and your speech is very related, because the jaw, sometimes when you get tense, you can tense the jaw. And if you start to speak like this, for instance, because there's tension, it sounds very different. And it's, and it might, what you can do is notice if your jaw is tense and release the jaw. And then when you feel, and I see you think like, how can I do that?
I'm
Because
just right, like let
yeah.
go.
In a meeting, when before a meeting, to notice how you're feeling,
Hmm.
and then to just release the jaw like that. Singers do that all the time, because they do that because it's their
Hmm.
instrument. And
Hmm.
if you're a speaker and you speak for your living, it's very important that your speech is in good shape.
Yeah.
And purely here, often tension gets accumulated here, and you can notice that. And if you're not really in the screen, notice that, and open or close your jaw a couple of times. And the connection to the down department, to your pelvis, when you notice when the pelvic floor, for instance, is tight, and it is for men and for women, it reflects in how the speech is. And if it's tight, it can go up here. I mean, and it sounds very awkward. And some people speak all the time like this because their voice is in the head registers here and not low down in the belly. You naturally have a very low voice, and it's very pleasant to listen to. Some people are not aware how their voice is and that you can change it.
Hmm.
And that is for the speech. And to come back to your question, what can they do practically when there is tension? Is to, again, notice how your feet are on the ground. Notice if you really feel your toes on the ground, because sometimes toes can even like can, they can cramp, and then and then the awareness also goes up to really imagine you have roots down in the ground. When you're on the chair, feel the support of the back of the chair, and again the breathing. To notice that exhale if you caught it up, and then bring it back down into the belly. And it's a constant practice, and especially when there is a pressure situation, when people feel like, oh, now I have to be on. I mean, these are the moments when you need it the most.
Yeah.
And also, for instance, to loosen the lips, some people are like this, or immediately eat the words back. They say something and like, oh, how does that? It's terrible. But if you just notice if people have their mouth a bit open, or if they are like this,
yeah,
it's interesting. And the fun thing is, once you become aware of these small details, your life is never going to be the same anymore.
I feel that it's because it's like it's really being able to make that switch of saying, actually, what is going on. Like I noticed recently I've been doing a lot more speaking and being a guest on lives and stuff. And I noticed that sometimes I speak really, really fast. And a lot of the time speaking really, really fast is because my host is speaking really, really fast, and I'm kind of matching them. And then I'm asking myself if I have Brita in my head, because we spoke about something before.
Yes.
And then I'm like, okay, scale it down, slow down, kind of be more present. But I
Yeah.
really like that now, with your advice and the things that you're saying, that's another thing that I can bring into it. Like, where are my feet? Am I speaking in my core? Where, is the tension in my jaws and stuff. So basically really being more present and more flowy in a sense. So I really like that it's something that I and anyone who is listening can actually take as something that they can do whenever they feel in that place.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for bringing that in, of like not matching, the speed of other people, because then it sort of accelerates, and it often happens because you want to pack as much content as possible in a chunk of time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that then people will receive more, because people receive often more if you vary the delivery, if you, for instance, also take pauses and see if it lands with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that actually. But then if you're going into the speaking arena and they say, okay, because I have a low voice. Every time I go on the phone, if I answer the phone, people always call me sir. I
Okay.
need to try and convince them that actually, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not. And it's really funny. It's always my daughters always laugh when they hear this in passing, like,
Uh-huh.
oh, you are men again. But when I speak, right, and there is
Mm-hmm.
this idea of intonation and bringing it
Mm-hmm.
up and down and the pausing and the getting the audience in, basically.
Mm-hmm.
How can I do this? What how can I do this and stay with the breath and stay with the presence and still somehow make my voice more interesting and more varied?
Yeah. It's like music. It's
Mm.
modulation. And when you, for instance, prepare a speech to see, okay, what are the important bits? And then, for instance, if you start a new chapter, you can go with a bang. You can say like, and now the roadmap.
Right.
Pause. Let it land. And then you give people, for instance, and you can also go in a list, for instance. If you come back to the boundaries, for instance, to let people really memorize stuff, it says like, let's do the roadmap. First step, recognize that it's happening. Then change the voice. Second step, and then change your own behavior. You say it in a different voice,
Yeah. Different intonation.
or and then drawing a clear line. Number 4, communicating what works and what does not.
Yeah.
Pause. And then saying no if the conditions are not respected. So you can vary the lines, how you deliver them, and also work with the pause. And
Mm.
there you have to pay attention, because if it goes in a certain rhythm and people say, oh, it's predictable, I know what she's going to say, and then surprise them, maybe then
Right.
change and speed up a bit and say, like, hey, you know what? I'm going to tell you a story now.
Yeah.
And it happened then, changing the voice. And it is wonderful. You can play with it. And when you prepare a speech, go up and walk around, like not just do it like this. I mean, like we do now, but go and say it outside, or maybe you lay down on the floor, because the voice also sounds different when you lay down on the ground, because you have the
Right.
support from the earth under you.
Mm.
And then basically before you're on, try to drop any expectation. And that's a hard one, because even, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm so used to coaching people and that. But I remember in the corporate coaching sessions, we had also sometimes stories where we also gave examples from our own behavior. I was nervous, even though I've done that many, 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 many times.
Mm.
And then I get to do what I preach other people to do for myself. Okay, take the pause, connect to the people in the room, look them in the eye. And if you work online, of course, I mean, I have to look up into the camera, because this is your eye.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is different. So there's a technicality also coming in. But the delivery and the tools of the voice, they stay the same.
Mm. And tell me more. I mean, I think it feels like we could talk about all of this for a long, long time. But the people who are listening, and they
Mm,
might be interested and curious to hear more
mhm,
about what you say and what you teach. How can they work with you? What is your program? I will later on. I will share all the links
mm, mhm,
in the comments below. But tell
mhm.
me, what do you offer people? How
Sure.
can they work with you? What do they get from working together?
Mhm. Yeah, I have up this in this moment. I have two programs. They are open for women, and one small program that is individual. The first one is about what we spoke in the very beginning, about noticing what's happening in your mind. How are you limiting yourself?
Mm.
And how can you connect to your own body to feel where you are, who you are, and what you believe? And that is called Be Your Body, Be at Home Wherever You Are.
Nice.
That's that's the first program. The second one is called Own Your Voice and Speak from the Core, Speak from Your Pelvic Floor. And that is more about expression and going out and speaking to people, so interconnectivity.
Yeah.
And it has the same foundation. You first have to connect to yourself, and then you can reach out. And that is also a program that's a longer program, it's 4 months. But I do accept also people who want to work and start individually and want to get a taste of that. And that
Mm.
is the small program. It's called Embodiment Package. And that is like 5 individual sessions with me, where I can also see, okay, what do you need? Where do you want to go with that? And what gets in the way?
Right.
It's online. I like to work also live, but I mean, online, of course, gives more reach and range for people who are not, because I'm here in Amsterdam,
Mm.
here in the Netherlands. And I have one like get to know me package, and that's called Space at Work. It's an online course, and that's ready made. Then you don't meet me live, but you can see it in your own time, and that is connected to breath and postural awareness when you work behind the computer. When you, for instance, become notice, oh, my neck is stiff or my lower back hurts, and they are like so short, very clear interventions, what you can do when you work behind to connect back to your body and back to your breath.
Mm. I like that. I don't usually walk with breath so much. I sometimes bring it in when I walk with people. Maybe they suffer with anxiety or high
Mm.
stress, and then I do walk with breath then. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's interesting for me. I don't usually. That's not usually part of the stuff that I talk about or do with my clients. So
Hmm.
it is really interesting to hear your approach to things. How it really is all about this connectivity and the flow. That that you are
Hmm.
connected. You connected to the flow. You connected to your body. Connected to the breath, and then you actually, it's like you are present. Here you are.
It is. It's a whole package. I mean, if I would say it's a symphony of music, like all the instruments they play together, and then it becomes like, this is the music that we love to hear.
Mm,
And how you are in your body and how your voice lives in your body is the same. They all play a different role. It's
excellent.
about tuning and practicing and actually enjoying the practice.
Yeah.
Because when you think, oh, I have to do that, because that's what never works with people. If you give them, I mean, that doesn't work with me. And I always relate first to what I like. And many people, they, yeah, if you're intrinsically motivated from your own, from your own motivation, rather than that somebody tells you what to do. There we come to leadership styles. The former
Right.
hierarchical leadership style was, I tell you what to do and you execute it. Ooh, boring. Like, it's very clear in terms of structure, but in terms of authenticity and having own identity and your own creativity it shuts down all creativity.
I definitely know what you mean.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Then we get into, micromanagement as well, right? And then you say, well,
Yeah.
if you know how to do it and you want to do it your way, then what am I doing here?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, and there it links, for instance, how in organizations, if you give own responsibility to people, they will be much more motivated, and
Yeah.
also in an open environment where you can say stuff, even though it's uncomfortable, that that real growth is happening. And it
Yeah.
starts with the individual and how they feel inside, and then it goes out. It's like a cell, in fact, like you're first a cell, and then from there you have the whole organism. And I
I,
see
yeah. Sorry.
organiza- sorry, yeah,
No, no,
organizations very much like that.
no, I totally agree with that. I was just, in the ebooks that I wrote about investing in your team's confidence and empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I said. That
Mm.
allow the person to do what you hire them to do. You hire them
Yes.
for their brains, for their innovations, for their
Mm.
approach. Let them be who they need to be, but also encourage them to know that actually mistakes are acceptable and they can ask for help, and they need let them be who and what they need to be. Stop penalizing and stop thinking that you have the best ideas and everything needs to happen your way.
Mm.
But I guess we are digressing a little bit, but this is, yes,
No,
definitely.
it all feeds into what is important.
Yeah.
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 So.
Um, yeah, right. So we coming to our end time. So is
Mhm.
there? Thank you, first of all. Thank you so much for coming along and bringing your wisdom and your beautiful self. And is there any last thing that you want to mention before we finish the live?
Well, first, thank you, Einav. I'm going to give the gratitude back. So it was a pleasure to be with you here. And is there anything else I want to give to people? Love yourself. It's a big thing. I mean, it sounds like that because, yeah, really like and love yourself. And if you don't, because often people um, have trouble with that, make it a practice.
Mm.
Make it a
Step out is
practice.
huge,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, but as you say, if you start practicing, if you're bringing yourself into the moment and not worrying so much about what other people are
Yeah.
thinking, that's a
Yeah.
big step forward.
Yeah. And I mean, because that's a big one. And, in terms of baby steps, do something every day that you really enjoy. Bring
Mm.
play into the day. That is what I would really, yeah, give people with.
Yeah,
So,
I
because
like that.
otherwise it's also serious, and it's play is super, super important. Because
Right.
often we can trust that, we're going to judge and analyze anyway because it's part of us. And then that element of play is super important.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. And I think it's a wonderful note to end the live,
Yes.
and I really hope that, yes, whoever is listening, bring more play into your life. I like
Mm.
that. Great. Well, thank you very much,
Wonderful.
Claudia. And
Thank you.
I'll,
Mhm.
I'll I'll just end the broadcast. So thank you.
Good. Bye.